What if the problem isn't you? What if you're in the wrong room? My suspicion? You're not broken and you don't need to be fixed. You've outgrown where you are. Let's get more space and freedom to redesign the life you deserve. Welcome to the Reinvention Room. I'm Allison Hare, podcast launch strategist for ambitious leaders, and we are rethinking everything we've been taught. Part pop culture, part real talk, and all smarter ways to live life on your own terms. Okay, so I've been standing out on Nicole Laino. I had a friend recommend her podcast Unshakable, and she's like, I think you're going to really like it. And I went so far down the rabbit hole, which never happens. Usually I'm like, I get the point after like one or two, and then I may peter out and move on. But Nicole Laino is here with us. I have stanned her. I've stalked her. I said, you need to be on my podcast. Welcome, Nicole. I'm so glad that you're here.
Grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, one of the things I think is interesting about you is you describe yourself as a type A hippie.
Yeah, I do.
Why do you do that?
I think because there's always been those two parts of me that I used to think had to be mutually exclusive. I thought that, I had the hippie side, but, that my organized, ambitious friends couldn't see that side of me. And then my ambitious friends couldn't, it went both ways. Whichever group I was with was the side that would come out. And that just never really felt right. And I maybe about 8 or 9 years ago, I probably claimed the fact that I'm a type A hippie. All of these things can coexist. So I had a career on Wall Street, and I was an actor. I have always been ambitious and driven. I love spreadsheets and data and can really get into that stuff. But my desk is also covered in crystals. I think that, that's sort of the modern entrepreneur, so to speak.
Yeah. I think, the crystal aspect is really interesting because I did an informal poll. I mean, this is not like a tested, peer-reviewed study, but I was talking to all of my friends who happen to be high-performing women, and every single one of them have their tarot reader on speed dial. Mm-hmm. They've got crystals everywhere. They've engaged with a lot of perhaps metaphysical because it requires both. And you have taken a hard left turn from Wall Street and acting into the world of human design. Would you explain a little bit about what human design is and how that became your calling card to what happens next? Because I'm so excited to unpack all this, but it's something that I think unlocks so much for people once they discover what their type is and how to apply it in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in New York, and I grew up, acting. That was sort of what I always wanted to be. And then I got a job on Wall Street sort of by accident because I ran out of money as an actor and I had to go do something to make money. And I ended up working on Wall Street, came in through the back door at one of the really big banks on Wall Street, and I had a really successful career there. I started out temping, and then they kept asking me to stay. And eventually they made me an offer that involved health insurance, which I did not have at the time and sounded really, really good to the inner girl in me that was like, what if we get hit by a bus and we go bankrupt? So that felt really good. The security, I think, felt really good there. And I worked there for 7 years, and I actually loved it for a good portion of the time, but it eventually did not speak to me anymore. It did not serve me anymore. And I feel like the first time my intuition really came through, or one of the first moments that I really heard my intuition was, leaning against the big glass, floor to ceiling glass window, looking down on West Street below, thinking, look at all the free people down there. And there was just part of me that said, there was a voice inside that said, this was right for you for a time. It is no longer right for you. It's time to move on, which was very scary because you had all the trappings of, a life like that, expenses and, big salary, big bonus, all of those things. And my identity kind of got wrapped up in that place too. Who am I if I don't have this badge? And if I don't have these perks? And if I don't have these Louboutin shoes? And if I don't have this title and all of that stuff? But then I left and I went to Los Angeles. I moved. My husband was kind enough to go on that journey with me. We went out to LA and I started acting again because that was the only time I really remembered what it was like to be me the last time I did. So we went out there and that was just, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what was going to come of that. That was a big leap of faith. And I found entrepreneurship through that journey. I went out to LA. I had to do something. So I started, I got started in like a network marketing company for about 5 minutes. I was like, this isn't what I'm going to do, but it feels like the right move right now. And what I ended up doing was I created a software for those people. So I built a software. I started blending strategy and energy right there. I started blending like my creative side and the project management skills I had from my corporate job. I started that path and that sort of morphed into coaching. I think we start to create a path when we give ourselves the freedom, when we let go of like, it has to be this way, or I have the job and I can't get out of it. When we sit there and we look at like, I could go any way, I have to choose. Our soul starts to talk to us. And my soul definitely said, you got some work to do, girl. Like we have some growing to do. There's some stuff that there's a path for you. There are better things for you, but it's going to be through the path of owning some of your struggle and really looking at some of your pain and doing a lot of inner work. So I got certifications. I went on a quest to like fix myself because that was where I was coming from. I felt like these parts of me are broken. I have trauma. I have all of this stuff. I couldn't understand why I worked so hard and was so successful at a corporate career. I worked 60 hours a week on Wall Street. I was an animal. And I was like, if I apply this to my own business, I'm going to be like a billionaire in like 6 months, because think about the effort if I were doing it all for myself. But the interesting thing to me was I couldn't show up for myself the way that I did for that company. And that was so interesting to me. Why is it that
so much? Yeah. And Nicole, what age range was this?
When I left corporate, I was 31, I think.
Okay.
Something like that. I'm thinking about this time was around 2018. Okay. 2018, when I started to really dive into that part of this work. And I started to ask myself, why is it? That was the interesting question to me. It was just like, I want this so badly. The work is there, but I procrastinate. I can't effectively do it. I'm learning all of this stuff, but I feel like I'm fighting myself. And that was when I started thinking about, I feel like there's a glass ceiling that I installed on myself and I cannot break it and I don't know what to do. So I went on like this healing journey. I went on this like looking for tools to help me break that ceiling. And I found EFT, which I still use to this day. I got certified with EFT.
And EFT stands for?
Emotional Freedom Technique. It's also known as tapping. So if you've ever heard of the tapping solution or things like that, that is what I'm talking about. Although I do it differently, I approach it a bit differently. I get real down and dirty with my tapping. I find a lot of other tapping to be very polite. And that's why a lot of people I don't think have success with it. I just use it in a different way, but it's the same tool. But I became certified in EFT. I became certified in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, how we talk to ourselves, the way our brain is programmed. I was fascinated with human behavior and particularly my behavior. And what I found was all of those tools were wonderful, but I could really be looking around for a long time to discover where I was stuck. Why, like it could be months that I would work on myself, or when I started working with clients with this stuff, we might have a while before we figured out what the thing was. Where did we have to really dig? And that just was taking a long time. While I was in the EFT certification, someone was getting certified in human design who was also in that program. And then it's one of those things where it's just like, when you hear the same thing like 3 times in a week, people asking you out of nowhere, you never heard it before. And they're just like, do you know your human design? Have you heard of human design? Have you heard about this thing called human design? Are you a generator?
I think that it's a yellow car that you're like, all of a sudden everywhere.
And you're like, all right, I got to look this up. The universe obviously wants me to look into this. And I did. And there was just so much truth to it that I saw that it made me go in deeper. And when I started to work with it, I was like, oh, this is like a map for all of the tools that I'm using. It's like I get to look at myself in this unbiased way to say, this is what's here. And this is where your junk might be hiding. And this is why it might be here. It changed my relationship with myself. That one of the core tenets that I really come at human design with, and it comes from the Gene Keys, which is a sort of a sister program to human design, is that every shadow contains a gift. I absolutely entered into the process trying to fix myself. I absolutely entered into the process being like, you're broken, things are not good, like, you're not good enough. How do we fix this? And just that, even just that one shift could have been, could have paid dividends for years. Just going from feeling like I needed to be fixed to just aspects of me were just in a shadow expression, but those were gifts if I just learned to work with them differently. It changed.
Let's pause here for a second.
Yeah.
But let's pause here for a second, because I think the listener, like you are listening to this going, yeah, we're all looking at ourselves as, a hammer to fix. Like, what is that saying of like, everything is a nail?
Oh, yeah.
It feels like that when we're trying to find agency, right? We're trying to find agency when things don't feel good. And so when you go out to figure out like, what is the silver bullet? I really want to kind of bring that home of how often we feel that way of like, something's wrong. I need it fixed now, especially as somebody who is type A. Can you help define what is human design for those people that have not heard of it? What is it?
So human design, it combines esoteric systems like astrology, the Hindu chakra system, the Kabbalah tree of life, quantum physics. What it does is and the Chinese I Ching, it brings these systems together. So similar to like how you would read your Western astrology horoscope, we're dealing with something similar where we're talking about energy, but it gives you an energetic blueprint of who you are. Now, how does that practically help us? If you run your chart, it's based on your birth time, it's based on your birth location. It is not subjective. That's an interesting thing about it. So when you do like the Enneagram or you do Myers-Briggs or Strength Finder or any of those, I used to get different results when I would take those tests. They're subjective to the way that you're answering them at the time you're answering them. I'm not saying they're not accurate. I'm just saying, even in your mind, you could be saying, well, I'm going to take it again and see if I get a different result. There's no taking this again. It is what it is. You were born at that time and that's it. That's something confronting right there, because you might see things, most people see things, and there's stuff that they don't like. I wish I had this. That's just an interesting conversation to have with yourself as well. Oh, well, what am I wishing that this was? But it gives you, when you run your chart, you will get what we call a body graph, and you'll get a bunch of shapes, lines, colors, numbers. You'll be very confused by it, I'm sure. Most people are. I was. It looks like this foreign language, something on like, the Goodwill Hunting chalkboard or something. But what it's telling you is you're going to see on your chart, some things are going to be colored in and some things are going to be white. At its very basic piece, human design tells you who you were born to be and who you were born not to be. Now, that is not a limitation that's saying like you are not these things. But most human suffering...
Like I already feel resistance to it. So like the fixed kind of personality thing. And what I think is interesting about human design is it's so remarkably accurate. It's not like a horoscope that you're like, yeah, that could apply to anybody. It is so specific, right? How does it work? Like, how is it so accurate?
Well, it is taking an imprint of, it's putting into a chart form the stardust imprint that was put on you at the time you were born. And what that's doing is it's telling you when you have an imprint, it's something that you live with. So that's the stuff that's yours all the time. And that's what the chart is telling you. Here's the stuff that's yours all the time. Where most human suffering comes from is we're trying to be The things we're not meant to be all the time, all the time. So we're trying to be driven, but that area of our chart, our imprint, is not really meant to be driven all the time. I always say it doesn't mean that it's missing, but if you're trying to be that 24/7, then you will probably suffer. It will probably feel bad. You will probably push and not get the results that you're looking for. Now there's a big I work with entrepreneurs. That's pretty much who I work with. 98% of the people that I work with are. And in the entrepreneurial space, I think there's a conversation that's happening over what do we need more of. There's the revolt against hustle culture. There's the revolt against pushing, but then there are still those people that will champion the max out, maximum effort sort of what we term bro marketing or bro tactics a little bit, that more masculine energy focused. And then there's the people that are telling you that, bubble baths are the key to success. And, just have an orgasm before you do anything in your business and you'll just be like pulling in money.
Yeah, no problem.
These big polarities. And what the answer is, because it's like, well, what should I do? Should I lean in or should I lean back? And I think that that's a question a lot of people have where they're like, well, I tried leaning back and I didn't make money. And then they go, but I've tried doing all the work and I've gotten the strategy and it didn't work either. So what do? It isn't that either one of them is wrong. It's that you're imbalanced, that you are somehow maybe going in the outdoor and out the indoor. And you're wondering why you keep getting bumped into or the door is shut in your face. And human design can show you just from that like really high level, the colored in stuff, that's the stuff that leads your chart. That is the stuff that leads your life. If you start leaning in those areas, these are the areas where you might be playing smaller than you're meant to play. These are the areas where you might be holding back, where you want to lean in. And then the areas that are white in your chart, those are the areas that if you're pushing really hard, that's probably part of your problem. And then, so you're going to lean back there. So the answer is never, oh, well, you just got to lean back and lean all the way back and there's no leaning in for you. No, we just want to avoid the overcorrection and we want to lean in where we're meant to lean in and we want to lean back where we're meant to lean back. And it can show us where like someone like you who has an open G center, which is the open identity center. This is the center of love, purpose, direction. And what that can result in when you have that open is that you don't necessarily, and it's not a hard and fast rule, but when I say this to people, I'll say, if you don't know exactly where you're going, like where you can chart a course and you can say, in 2 years, I will be there and stick to that course and stay it, where that doesn't feel right to you, that's probably good. And it's probably how you're meant to work. Your path doesn't mean that you don't have a path. It doesn't mean you don't have a purpose. It just means that that's not the way that's going to feel good to you and get you where you actually are meant to go. You're going to force it and it will probably feel bad. And usually people who have these aspects of their chart there's some truth to that to them where that resonates on some level and they go, I have felt that way. That's not.
So I'm experiencing all of this in real time. As you know, you and I are working together on mine. And one of the things that I think about, and I would love to, I'll share this quick anecdote, and then I'd love to talk through if you could help us understand the different types.
Yeah.
I've got some follow-up questions there. But I wonder, as somebody who has made my entire career, almost 25 years in corporate sales, where my reputation was built on gaining access where there was none before. And so I was really, really good at gaining access to the C-suite and executives. What I think is interesting about that is that I purposely remember being scared out of my wits, but forcing myself to the point where being a hunter didn't feel great. It didn't feel great to continuously do it. And I that hustle culture, I really, really bought in and was like, I am going to over condition myself where this doesn't feel like pain. And this doesn't feel like, I'm going to like plow through the fear and grind through. And I was always surrounded by men. And so men naturally would do that. So I was always the one woman that was like, well, I'm not going to be less, right? I'm just going to go for it. But reviewing it now, being out of that environment, it makes me wonder how much of it, me being a generator, which I know you'll explain, somebody that is in response to opportunities, not necessarily initiating. I wonder if that imbalance of me leaving corporate America was as a result of like forcing myself down a path that wasn't that way. So I'll pause, but that's kind of how I'm reflecting on that. And then I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're someone so when you talk about like gaining access, that, there are probably some levers that you can pull individually that, with your unique energy, there's a channel in your chart. There's a strong energy in your chart for nurturing, for caring, for being like a safe place for people. So the fact that you were able to gain access can absolutely be, you also have something we call the aura breaker, which just certain energies in your chart that might have made you suited to gain access through maybe just you being a certain type of energy when you were working these angles or working these relationships. You have a lot of relationship building in your chart. There's a lot of that in your chart. So much of it is around building relationships, building community, and creating that. So that could have been at work and made you good at what you did. However, you have an open ego. And I'll go into what the types are, but you being a generator, if you didn't enjoy the work, it doesn't matter if you're good at it. If you don't enjoy it, then it's going to feel like you are stuck all the time, even when you're moving.
It felt very ego-driven too. It felt very ego-driven that I was, and I think as women in general, we are always, our nature, especially type A women, we're always over-proving our worth in every room that we're in. And we're so used to doing that. And that's why I brought up the story, because I do think it is ego-driven.
So I always say it's, again, human design, if we look at it like a map, it helps us look at our situations from a place of objectivity and give us better questions to ask. So we're not just asking, well, is it getting us what we want? Is it moving the needle? Is it doing, that's all external. But if we come back to like what's aligned for us, what is right for us, we could ask you, well, what is driving the action that you're taking? Is it joy, which would be following you being a generator? And are you in response to life and following through? We ask the question, as a generator, what would be aligned for you? Well, it would be aligned for you to wait for responses, have the world present you with things, and then do what feels right. Are you doing that? Or is it coming from a place of trying to prove yourself, which is the open ego, which is what you are not? If you're trying to prove yourself, and that is driving the action, I would say, what's the come from? Where is the action coming from? Is it coming from, I don't know why I want to do it. It doesn't make sense, but I want to do it because it feels good. That's a better answer than I'm doing it to prove myself. I'm doing it so that I keep my job. I'm doing it so that I meet the next quota. I'm doing it so that I end up number one on the leaderboard. I'm doing it so I can be enough, prove that I'm enough. If it's coming from any of those places, that's what we refer to as the not self. And the not self will pull you. There are plenty of people that are very successful being not self. That is, this is not at all saying that you can't be successful doing that. You just probably won't be happy and successful.
And I think you work harder.
Successful.
Yeah, I think you work harder in that too. Can you go through the different types
of course
in human design? And
yes,
how can somebody find their type?
Yes. So you can actually go to my website, go to NicoleLaino.com/chart, and you can run a chart there totally for free. And then we have a free video there. We'll walk you through a little bit more detail in your type as well, just after you run the chart. But you run your chart, it's going to tell you a type. There are 5 types. So there are generators, which that is what Allison, you are. You're a generator. A generator is driven by their gut. They are here to be lit up. They are the builders of the world. They are the ones, generators have the sustainable energy to build and work and do. Now, for generators, this can look like maybe relaxing doesn't look the same for you as it does for some of the other types. I am a manifesting generator, which we'll get to that in a second, which is sort of a sister to the generators. But my husband is a totally different type than me, and my son. So us understanding that I have a different level of energy than they do has been transformative for our family, and understanding that not everybody is like us, right down to how do we relax and how do we work and how much do we work and what are the ways that we have the greatest effectiveness. Generators, you're here to do what lights you up. You're here to know about yourself. So by following what you love and what you enjoy doing, most generators will resonate with the fact that when you're doing something that you enjoy, I don't care what it is. It could be a great work project. It could be cleaning the closet. It doesn't matter. Anything. If you're into it, you could kind of do it and do it and do it and do it until like it's done, and you'll feel really good about it. You generate more energy for the thing that you're doing if it feels worthy of that energy. And if you don't feel like doing it, it doesn't matter how much energy you normally have. You feel drained, you feel stuck, and each type gets a signature and a not self theme. This is your red light, green light sort of signals in your life to let you know if you're in or out of alignment. If you're a generator and you feel satisfied, so you're cleaning the closet and it feels like a good day to clean the closet, then keep going. You don't have to say, should I be cleaning the closet today? Is this a good use of my time? It's strengthening your energy. It is helping you on an energetic level. And that's really what we're talking about here, is when we start to work with energetics and not just strategy, then we start to get better results by doing less. By being able to prioritize something like feeling good and being satisfied as a generator is more important than how much work did you put in today on this particular project. Now we have to balance it, but that's kind of the premise there. So generators, they are satisfied when they are in good energy, when they are aligned, and they are frustrated or stuck, feeling stuck when they are not. Now they're meant to be in response to life. And by in response, every generator usually can relate to sitting down, trying to write something or do something because they said they would do it at 10 a.m. And you stare at the blank screen and you're like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And you get frustrated, right? You feel stuck. You feel annoyed. You're starting to you get frustrated. And the key is that you're not working with your energy there. You're not in response to anything. You'll notice that if you go and interact with life, you could go to the store, you could go for a walk, you could go talk to somebody, you could go even online and comment on a few things. Just by getting in response to life, suddenly your energy is moving now. You think you got ideas. No, something turned your energy on through a response. And now you have the energy to do something else. It's a new way of working. Manifesting generators are that sister cousin to the generator. Same thing, just we have a little bit more of a vision that's necessary. Very creative. We really want to be in the dreaming up portion of the building. Like we want to have the vision. The vision is so important. And we are more multi-passionate than the generators. Generators tend to have better staying power toward one thing and building one thing. Manifesting generators, I might be building, a human design program today, and then 6 months from now, I'm teaching you how to scuba dive. Like it could be totally out of left field. We are very multi-passionate beings, and that's part of our process. So part of the overcoming the shadows of a manifesting generator is helping those people recognize that being multi-passionate does not mean that you are flaky. It's actually part of your process. And if you surrender to that, give yourself permission to be multi-passionate, to not do one thing. So with entrepreneurs, that like idea that you should have one offer and teach one thing, and you build one offer for years until you get it to $1 million, and then you can build something else. It is crippling to manifesting generators because we literally don't know how to do that. It feels like it just doesn't work. So when I freed myself from that, that was the first step for me.
You're a manifesting generator, yeah?
I'm a manifesting generator. And that felt suffocating to me. And I didn't know how to do it. And I also had a lot of shame for not being quote unquote coachable. Like my coaches told me I didn't do exactly what they said. for long enough. And it was like, oh, I got to do this for like years until I get to $1 million before I can try doing it my way. And then when I found human design, it gave me permission to be the way that I was naturally. The third type is projectors. Projectors are the wise guides of society. They are about 20% of the population. They do not have sustainable energy. So they're what we call non-sacral beings. So they don't have this sustainable energy. They have energy, but they don't have the energy to keep going and going and going when they work on something. They burn out quickly. So they're not really here to build stuff. And they can first hear that and think that that's a big limitation on their life.
Yeah.
But when they start to recognize that, no, they're just going to be successful in a different way. My husband's a projector. I'm surrounded by them. They're 20% of the world. They're 80% of my life. My son, my sister-in-law, my mom, they're here to be recognized, and they're here to be recognized for their wisdom. And the wisdom comes from them being really intuitive about systems, about ways things can be done more efficiently. Generators are out there creating and building and doing all this stuff, using all of their energy. And a projector, if they're aligned, they're sitting back and watching, and they're going, I see how you could get that done a whole lot faster. They wouldn't be able to tell you that. They wouldn't be able to have that gift come out if they were busy alongside of you. They would just be burning out trying to keep up with you. So their wisdom, their thing that they are here for, to be able to kind of see deeply into things, it would not be able to come out of them. So they have to prioritize different things. They have a new way of living. We live in a generator world. 70% of the world has sustainable energy. Now you have 20% that comes in and they go, I'm not like you, but I got to keep up. That's what the world is. No, they have to learn to honor what they are. And when they do, people, their signature is success. If they feel successful, then things are going their way. I see this all the time with projectors in corporate, because they are seen, because there isn't a pressure necessarily to do as much as everybody else. There might be, but usually they get to a certain level of management. They raise in the ranks a little bit where they're not the worker bee. And then they start to soar. Everybody's just recognizing the insights that they have, the way they have these, just a very clear way of managing people and managing systems and creating new ways of doing things and finding inefficiencies and easy ways to turn them around. That's what they do. That's their gift. They guide the energy, but they have to start honoring that. And we have manifestors, which they are the visionaries and trailblazers of society. They're about 8%. They are here to do things differently. They have a strong, bold, repelling aura that pushes the right things, that pulls the right people into them and pushes the wrong things out of their way so that they can make new things happen. They're here to do new stuff. They're not here to follow somebody else's path. They're not here to do what somebody else says. Every decision has to be their own. So it's a very innovative and creative energy that they have. And then we have reflectors. They're 1%. They are the unicorns. They're really here to be very wise about things that none of us can feel. They're super sensitive beings. They're very in tune with everything in the world, like their community. When things feel off, they feel off. They feel sick. They are sort of like barometers. They call them the canary in the coal mine, how they used to send the canaries down into the mines with the coal miners because they were sensitive to toxic gases and they would die before and if they died, the workers knew to get out of the mine that it wasn't safe. The reflectors are like that, is that they start to get sick before the rest of us. They start to feel it before the rest of us. And for them, it's about recognizing that they're not sick. Nothing is wrong. If they focused on what they feel rather than just how they are feeling, they'd have a lot to tell us about what's off in our society. They're very sensitive, energetic beings.
This is so interesting because as I'm thinking about these particular types, and hopefully if you're listening and you're not driving, you have already gone to Nicole's site and gotten your chart and like, oh yeah, this makes sense. One of the things that I have noticed is that it feels like human design is like a big permission slip to do things differently than maybe you were taught. And so a lot of this requires reconditioning or deconditioning. Also, that coupled with a lot of my audience and you listening, you are probably in a state of transition and probably over the age of 35 in most cases. I know that you have done a lot of work around this, Nicole. Can you kind of bring all of this together in a way of how to apply human design as we are going through our own reinventions, whether it be by age or by wisdom or by experience or by trauma, by whatever we're going through? There's so much. There's so much here.
Sure. So I think the first step, and this is why human design is so valuable, because it's you. It's telling you where your adjustments are. Not that, if I took my husband's advice years ago, he kept telling me I was, why was I always so stressed out? Why was I always so busy? Why don't you need to relax? That was his advice, because that was his perspective, because he's a projector and he's different than me. He's built different than me. He has different energy than me. So the books that you read on personal development, the coach that you have that did it their way and you want to learn from them, they're giving you their experience. And human design, what's so powerful about it is it's giving you and saying, like, this is what's true for you. And then you make adjustments based on your chart, not what I told you I needed to fix or I needed to work on or what helped me. I could give you insight through that, but the direction for you is going to be about what is correct for you. What are the adjustments that are right for you? So the way that it starts, it always starts with type, because that's the biggest category. That's the easiest thing to wrap your head around in the beginning. So if you're a generator, you're going to stop doing things because you should or because you feel obligated to, and giving your energy away and starting to pay attention to what is your gut reaction? Where does your energy want to go? You're going to stop having your mind tell you, well, you have to do this. You've got to get this done. This is how you're going to get to where you want to go. This is how you're going to reach your goals. You're going to stop listening to that and start paying attention to something different. You're going to bring the power back into your body. Because I always find it so interesting. We're all trying to rewire our beliefs. We all know that we have these minds that have, old stories and ways that are giving us what we've always gotten and not what we want. But yet we pass every decision through that conditioned mind. Yet we filter it through all of that conditioning. Human design brings the power back into your body. So rather than into your mind, rather than from your mind. So as a generator, you're going to be paying attention to something different. Manifesting generators, the same thing. You're going to, if you get stuck or frustrated, instead of feeling like you have to push through that, which is misaligned, you're going to go for a walk. And you're going to do things that, 1, create space in your life, 2, bring more joy into your life, 3, you're going to see how opening up your energy starts to create space for all the things you were trying to force before. And they drop in. The idea, the phone call, the thing you've been waiting for suddenly comes when you're open to receiving it, when you're in the right energy to receive it. You just start to feel better. Projectors, you're going to stop trying to keep up with generators and stop playing their game, because that's not your game and you will never win. You will never beat us at being a generator. You have to start to give yourself permission to be who you are. So it all starts with this. Manifestors, you're going to stop worrying about what people think of you. You're going to stop worrying about if you're going to offend people. You're going to stop trying to look for evidence out in the world that your thing will work, and just follow what you want to create. It's about trusting your own inner guidance. And we hear the term surrender a lot, that, surrender, you have to learn to surrender. We have to surrender.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that for a long time before I found this and being like, yeah, but how? So I would meditate and I would do all of these things, but it was like, but how do I surrender like in my day? How do I surrender like as a practice rather than like a practice that I do in the morning and then I'm back to the way that I was before? And that's what I think is so helpful about human design, because it gives you the how. It actually gives you a framework for how you surrender. You have to surrender to something different than I have to surrender to. My husband has to surrender to different things than I do. And everybody is different. So when you start to understand what your codes are, and that's really what it is, We're all coded differently. So when you start to understand what your codes are, you start to understand where you need to lean in and lean back. How do you start to ask yourself better questions about whether you are on the path of your alignment, or if you're letting your adaptive nature, your conditioning, guide your journey? And we get better at that every day. But it starts, type is the first place we start with that. And we all get an authority. We obviously, I'll say it's a complex system, but it's not complicated if you don't make it complicated. Just usually everybody's trying to do everything at once, and that becomes overwhelming. So I recommend going piece by piece. You start with type. I call it the trifecta. You start with human design type, your authority, and your profile. Those are the three elements that I recommend working with first, and then you can go deeper. And that's what I do with people.
Yeah, you had mentioned something before we started recording about the conscious sun. What does that mean?
So your conscious sun is sort of the guiding light in your chart. It's the biggest theme that you were born under. It tells you a lot about the light you're here to shine in this world. And when we start working with these, it's what we refer to as a gate. And gates this is like your number one code. This is like your big code. And what this tells us when we're talking about refining where we are in shadow or in light, where we are in low expression or in our gift, this is our biggest one. So with the conscious sun, I work with it as your brand. That's one way that I work with it. It's some key to your brand and your business when I work with people on business and their human design. And if you look at it, you can look up the shadow of that particular gate. You can look up the gift of your particular gate. I like how the Gene Keys refers to this. They call it your life's work. And what that means to me when I hear life's work, it is the work of your life. It's the work that you're going to do at every level. You're going to be kind of slaying this same dragon at different levels. And every time you slay it, you're going to get deeper connected to yourself. Your gifts are going to shine more. People are going to see that in you, and life is going to get easier, and you're going to get different clues to where you go next. So my conscious sun is gate 64, which is the gate of confusion. The shadow is confusion. Yes, I have spent a lot of my life confused and trying to figure things out, reflecting on the past, trying to figure it out, trying to figure out why did this happen. And then the gift of it is imagination. Now, with me looking at that as a tool, it was like, okay, if this somehow shows my path. So if I could start to see confusion and how that always came up, and what is my secret to overcoming confusion? Well, first I had to do that. I actually had to overcome it. I had to not be sucked into it. I had to notice how it was at play my whole life. And then imagination and illumination are the gifts and the high gift of it. I can illuminate a path through clarity. I can explain something esoteric and complicated or complex like human design and start to break it down for people in a way that they can understand and they can practically apply it in their life. And that's how, by me focusing on overcoming the confusion myself, I dove into all of this. I had to really understand this. It took me a long time to get to the level of knowledge that I have about this and to have the depth of it. But that allows me to have something to offer somebody like you or somebody who's listening, who knows that this work is right for them. And I can explain it in a way that actually gives them clarity on who they are so that they can illuminate a different path for themselves. So that
I think what's interesting about all of the human design is we think about how many modalities that generally speaking we have encountered, whether it's therapy, whether it is, there's so many different modalities. And, from a personal reflection of noticing human design and where I was out of alignment, but I had no idea, and how I can be in more alignment without apology is a really powerful place. Because I think we've spent a lot of time either suppressing our gut instincts to fit into a formulaic world, that really was led by hustle and grind. And, even those words are so aggressive, right?
Yeah.
but what does it look like to be, like you say, to be less in hustle and more in flow? I wonder what, how, if somebody is going to be starting with this work, and I know you gave a framework to start with the type and go with this. Tell me about how somebody can start to trust their gut instincts again as they start to apply human designs, and identifying where, maybe they pushed it down without even knowing it.
Yeah, I think that, you know, it's that initial permission slip to again, gut instincts is going to be a generator. It's going to be a manifesting generator. That's actually not going to be what it is for a projector. It's not going to be their gut instinct that's driving them at all. So I think some of it is that. It's a totally
different framework.
It's a different framework. So when people say follow your gut, a lot of projectors will be like, I don't know what that feels like. And they think something's wrong with them. So even just the realization that there's nothing wrong with you, that you were just following somebody else's framework, that gives you the permission to, usually because there's truth in it and people go, oh my God, yeah, that's my life. Okay, well, I just explained to you what your life looked like and we've never met. So there's obviously some truth to what I'm seeing here. So here's what I'd like you to do first. It's much easier to take action from that place because they're going, okay, I've never tried this before, but there's something here. I know there is. That really is where it all comes from. And just not getting overwhelmed with it. Don't try to use it all at once. Don't try to, there's very much, it's a lot of observing yourself in the beginning. It's a lot of noticing where your tendency is to do what is not your strategy, what is not your path, what is not your way. For projectors, they're going to feel themselves want to feel like they have to do more and keep up with everybody else. So in the beginning, you're just going to have to notice that is a strong pull for you and not do it. Don't take the bait.
I'm curious, what is different for you now that you've applied human design? What path is different that you would have not taken had you not explored human design?
Oh my goodness. I don't know what would be the same, to tell you the truth. I mean, I'm still married to the same man. I'm still like, my life is the same. But first of all, it changed my marriage. Like, we communicate in a very different way now. We have much more respect for who the other one is, which has made home life. We had a wonderful relationship before, but there was definitely, I would say, like, he thought I was crazy. I thought he was lazy. And we were both wrong. We were just looking at each other thinking, you should be like me. So it's changed my whole world in that respect, where I have a lot more compassion for people. But what have I been able to do? I was a hustler. I was absolutely somebody who came from like a badge of honor. I wore, well, that no one will outwork me. I'll outwork everybody. Like, that was the plan. And I didn't even care that didn't feel good. It was just like, that's how you make it. And then when I needed to do things that required more than just effort, I got really stuck. So what have I been able to do? I mean, I was stuck in my business at like making 50, 60 grand a year. And that was just not enough for, the expenses that came with the bit. It was just not enough. And so I brought my business to multiple six figures, which is tremendous. And I work like 20 hours a week is really what I put in, probably, of like work time. I'm very proud of that. And that feels very comfortable for me. And sometimes I have seasons where I need to do more. And then there's some seasons where I do less. If I want to take off, I have freedom in my life. And I don't think that I would have allowed myself to have freedom before. My nervous system is just at a place where I operate very, very differently. And I attract a very different type of client now. We attract what we are. So when I was hustling, when I was trying, I got a lot of people that were in that fixing energy. I got a lot of people that matched my energy. And now I get people who want what I do now. which is really gratifying. I work in my zone of genius. It's not hard for me to do what I do because I know that the questions they're going to ask are going to be ones I can answer. The guidance that they need is going to be what I can provide. And I have a lot of confidence in that because I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm not trying to be something I'm not. It's the more me I am, the more money I make, the happier my clients are, the better the results they get. That's which I just enjoy that. So what's changed? I think everything and nothing all at the same time. It's like I'm doing the same things, but I'm doing them so much better. They're so much easier. And my life is far more rewarding and successful because of it.
Isn't that beautiful? It feels like a state of peace that the type A personality finds elusive, right? When you're in that type A running. I'm so grateful for you, Nicole. How can somebody work with you or get more information or connect with you or listen to your brilliant podcast?
Thank you. Well, my podcast is definitely where you can jump in and just start to hear a little bit more about this. If you're curious about human design, you want to dive in deeper. It's called Unshakable with Human Design. You can get it everywhere podcasts are broadcast. If you want we do have a free guide if you're interested in understanding how I tie business with human design. This is the strategy and the energy, how we build a business that's profitable and help you become an aligned CEO. We do have a free guide on that. If you go to NicoleLaino.com/ebook, I believe is the link.
And I'll link it in the show notes.
And we'll link it in the show notes. Thank you for that. Yeah. She'll catch my error if that's it. But that you can download that totally for free. And then if you want to dive deeper, we do human design readings. If you want to have me go through your chart with you and break it down of what I see, so you don't have to learn it all. It's a great place to start with somebody kind of translating what the chart means and what it means for you and what your next steps are. So we do that. Those are on my website at NicoleLaino.com, and you can just go to /reading and you can find it there.
And I think you're right, Nicole, that you make things really accessible. And so breaking it down for people and making it simplified is really your gift of how, it is you, right? Like this is you. But you translating it in a way to apply it immediately is truly your gift. It's one thing to know, right? Like I'm a Scorpio. What does that mean?
Yeah.
I'm a generator. How do you apply that? And that really is something you do incredibly well. And what prompted me to hunt you down like an animal.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate it.